Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'm going to be working on a reel that Randy sent in. This one is a Browning reel. It's by the Browning Arms Company. I'm not quite sure if this was before or after Browning acquired the Mitchell line, but it kind of looks like it's after they acquired it because the bail looks very similar to a Mitchell type of a bail. Browning, of course, was Browning Arms, and of course that's firearms and the like. This reel was made in Japan. It was to supplement the hunting crowd with the fishing industry. This one does not have an anti-reverse. That switch is just not working. So we're going to take this reel apart. We'll see what the issues are in this. We'll see if it's repairable. Chances are if it's got a broken piece or part in there, those, well, they'll be unavailable. My guess is these reels were made in the 1980s. This one's got a metal jacketed case. And well, it just it seems like one of those things where if something does break, you're kind of out of luck at this point. Again, very much looks like a Mitchell interior design here. So we'll say that this is after they acquired Mitchell. Let's just make sure everything's working well. It is. And let's get started then. So we took off the spool. I'm going to take off the handle, take out the side plate type thing, take a look at this, see what's going on. And while I remove the exterior pieces and parts, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel, particularly if you like the videos that you're watching, if you like to learn about fishing reels, service and repair, if you just like to learn about the older reels or the new reels. I cover all kinds of reels. You're basically looking over my shoulder in my shop as I do service on reels. And well, you're looking at whatever came into my shop for repair. And occasionally something I may find at a flea market or a local garage sale or that. But most of these are sent in by customers, and they're just looking to get their reel working again. So if you'd like to learn how to diagnose, how to identify issues, and how to correct those, this is the channel for you. And again, subscribing doesn't cost you anything. It might help you out. I want to recommend that you do. Go ahead and subscribe. There's 3 screws that are holding this case on. They kind of look like the Japanese industrial standard screw here. It's got a little pothole in the middle of it. I'm just using a flat-bladed screwdriver to remove these. I do have that JIS screwdriver around somewhere, but generally speaking, I just kind of go with this. Alright, the 3 screws are out. Let's get a look at what's going on inside the reel. You can do that by removing the case. And I'm kind of curious. I think we have a stuck anti-reverse dog. I think that's what's going on here. See, I'm moving this up and down, but this dog here probably should move up and down with it, and I'm not seeing that. So let's go ahead and continue to take this apart. This is a different internal design than the Mitchell reels, so I guess if we're trying to figure this one out, we probably need to do a little bit more research. Take a picture right here, right now, so that you can see what's going on before you start removing the pieces and parts. What I'm seeing is that on this crosswind block, it's not symmetrical. So you have a low-hanging piece here that's not up top. The up top is sort of like the letter T. When you go to reinstall this, make sure that that lower arm is facing down. If it doesn't face down, you're going to be banging it, and it's not going to be working at all. Let's take the second screw out of this. Now we should be able to pull up and out on this to remove the axle shaft. That's your axle shaft. When I take my pieces and parts off, they go in the parts tray. That's how I manage the pieces that have come off, so that I know where they are when it's time to reinstall. Now we can get to our crosswind block. I guess this is everybody's pot metal piece. This was made in Japan. I'm going to guess the 80s. And it has the metal case to it, so it's still in that era before graphite. Graphite kind of came in the 1980s, so maybe this could even be a 70s reel. But again, Browning acquired Mitchell, and I think that was in 1981. So this may have been a reel that was made for them as a trade reel prior to them acquiring, Mitchell? Not quite sure. All right, let's get this off of here now. For that, you're going to need a deep socket. Reason for that is you have a bowl here, and that bowl is, well, it's too deep to get a wrench on. So you're going to need the socket. I have a box of sockets. Unfortunately, I don't keep them in any particular order, so it's kind of guess until you run out of it and find the right one. Right? That's that old thing. Why is the thing you're searching for always in the last place you look? Well, because you stop looking after you finally find it, right? There you go. All right, let's take that off. Again, pictures help along the way. I'm taking videos right now. That's helping me with this. We have a little lock washer inside here. This is our bail. We've tested the bail. It works fine. You don't need to do anything with the bail. I just generally will put a little spray of penetrating oil on both sides if it's working. That just helps to loosen it up a little bit. Fire that thing. That's doing fine. Okay, on top here we have a couple of things to notice here. We have this ramp, and the ramp matches up against the back here, where that's going to force that piece to push in, trip the bail. There's 3 small screws on here. Don't lose those. And you need to take this collar off in order to remove the pinion gear. And I guess we'll see in a moment whether there's a bearing on there or not. Sometimes these reels had bearings. Sometimes they had bushings back in the day. We'll find out which one is which. I haven't done any research on it at all. I just know that we're kind of stuck here with that lever. And that's what we're trying to solve for David, in addition to tuning this up. All right, that comes off into the parts tray with those 3 spots. We should be able to pull this right out. And we can tell it does need some service on it. Bearing seems to be fine. You can test the bearing by putting it between your fingers and rolling it. There's several different ways to do it. This one's a metal shielded bearing. So after I do a little bit of a wipe down on this, I'm just going to drop some oil on it. That oil will seep through this bearing. Now, that's an interesting bearing there. If you wanted to, you could remove the shield. There's a little clip ring that goes on this. Sometimes you need a magnifying glass to find it. But if you just put it there, it will seep in and kind of store that for you. Before I take the main gear out, I'm just going to grab a brush here and brush this out to get all the old dirt out of there. I brush it onto a paper towel so that it doesn't get right back into the piece. And I also like that paper towel so that it doesn't clog my next project. All right, I'm going to use a little bit of a squirt of penetrating oil as a degreaser. I'll come back and do that again. And I'm inspecting the teeth as I do this. I want to make sure that the teeth are in good condition, that they're not twisted or bent or anything. These are. So we'll just put that aside for a moment. We can put the bearing back on there if we like. Stand it up, let that oil kind of soak in there again. Let's go push this over and we'll finally get to the part here that says something is either right or wrong with this reel. So this is what I suspected. We have pretty much a stuck anti-reverse here. I think that anti-reverse needs to travel up, and I think that's what's going to lock this out. This lock, now let's see what's going on here. Well, let's put some of the penetrating oil on here. See if we can't get this freed up a little bit. Okay, so my thinking here now is that this is just flattened out, this tension spring. we seem to be okay with that. So let's go ahead and grab that tension spring. And again, this is one of those situations where if the part's gone, it's gone. But if we can somehow manage to restore this, maybe by just gently rebending it, that'll be our answer in terms of how to solve that particular issue. And for that, I'm going to try and find a small flat-bladed screwdriver, because there is an E clip right here. Be careful when you remove it. These things have a tendency to shoot. But the E clip has been removed. I'm going to show you what's going on here now. The E clip is removed, so this should be a little stand-up piece here. I guess that's the other way to do it. We have that top part with a little kind of a washer on it. This is the part that I believe is flattened out. And yeah, it's flattened out terribly. So I think the answer here is simply to just rebend. And to do that, I'm just going to grab a pliers. Try to put a little bit more tension back into this. So now we've kind of put it back into a U shape, and with any luck, that's going to hold. All right, this fell out, which is unfortunate, but I think it goes this way. Yeah, it's an offset. It's not a straight up. So let's put that back in. Let's put the bend piece back on now. So to me, that should restore the tension there. Question is, are we going to be able to get the rest of it on? This may take a little bit of doing. This piece goes on. Well, I'm trying to hold tension here. I don't know if I can. I'm trying to hold the tension. Expose the little gap there. And get this E-clip on. There's a lot going on in this one. I often wonder how they do this in the plants. I assume they do it better than I do. All right, I think I almost got this one on. Push that out. Yep, I almost got it. Pushing a little bit the wrong way. I apologize if you can't see this. All right, we're back on. So let's see if we've got the tension back in this now. Oh yeah, we got the tension back. So that's kind of it, right? It's not easy, but that's what caused this to be the issue. All right, we're back on with that. Now this, if I reverse here, that's kind of freed up. I guess if I do it this way, it's easier. And again, this little tab here, when you move this down, the tab hooks this piece here, prevents this from coming in. Okay. Wow, that was interesting. All right, we have a bearing in the back. Let's go ahead and oil that. I oil the bearings, I don't grease them. Let's clean up the main gear. Let's get this thing back together again, see how we can do this, huh? All right, a little bit of penetrating oil here. Lots of old grease. You want to get the grease off of here. Some people kind of just want to leave it. It gets there because of centrifugal force, and you generally start with this stuff on the teeth. As the reel spins, it sheds it. As it sheds it, it pulls it in from the force. Okay, cleans that up pretty good. Get it onto the paper towel, away from the projects. I'm going to use a metal brush on this one because this one's a little tighter. I am noticing as I'm looking at that there is a brass bushing on that crossline stud, so don't lose that. And you can see the old grease is pulling out and onto the paper towel here, which is a good place for it to be. All right, a little bit more on the sides here. Seems like there's been a little carryover. I think we're good. I'm going to use some fishing wheel grease for this now. I'm using Penn Precision Reel Grease here. I recommend that you use fishing wheel grease. Doesn't really matter which one. But by all means, please use the fishing wheel grease. A little bit on the inside now because that crossline block is going to ride up and down on that. Let's bring it here. We're going to set that down. This needs to be in the off position as you go to load. So make sure you bring it back. We can bring this over and in. And then when I'm loading this now, I like to use the handle because that will keep it tight in so that I can thread that pinion gear through here. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, we've got that nice and tight now. All right, we need to go up top then and reload the rest of this. On the pinion gear, we did oil that bearing. We're going to make sure that this gets the same treatment as the main gear in terms of greases and the like. Kind of curious the way they cut this. I'm not seeing anything unusual there. It's probably just the way that it has to get through the main gear. Bring the main gear and pinion gear in, seat that. That's the way it seats. I'm not seeing a reason why that has to have that, but it does. The cutout. That's that is the cutout. And then, well, me and these small little screws, right? Let's see if that screw starter is around and if it can do what it's paid to do. Nope, too small. All right, we're going to pause for a moment, then we'll come back to this. Okay, I'm back from my break, and well, this saved you some of the time watching me put screws in, but I have one more here that we'll tighten up. That's holding down the pinion gear and the bearing set. Let's make sure these are all tight. This is your trip ramp for your return. On the inside, we'll bring it this way. Hold down on the back of the pinion gear when you go to put your rotor back on, and then your clip here, that little keyway, will line to the flat side. Rotate your rotor so that it seats. And we can grab that rotor nut, put that in. We're essentially taking the forward facing steps, reversing them, bringing them back down again. All right, let's find that ratchet. It's a 13 millimeter ratchet for those of you playing along at home. Switch the throw on it, tighten it down. All right, now we should have a fishing reel that has that anti-reverse restored. We should have the override, where you can backpedal, and we should have the forward set. Okay, mission accomplished with that. Let's go ahead then and bring the axle shaft in and set that crossline block. So remember what we said, this is not symmetrical. It is a T-shape with the base facing down. Bring your axle shaft with the two holes into alignment. And through the top, through the hole in the crossline block. Then locate your 2 holes coming in. And then of course we got to deal with those little screws again, don't we? This time around I think this screw starter probably may be able to get it going. Nope, we do. So bring that in. Get it started. I never finished the screws with this. Just like to get them started. This is a split-bladed screwdriver, and because of that you run into a situation where if you try to tighten it, you can push that split away, and then it's no good for anybody. Alright, that wing is on. One more. And now when we turn the wheel, we should have an up and down movement on your axle shaft. Okay, let's take the 3 side plate screws then, put those in. I have about 4 different flat-bladed screwdrivers that I use, depending on the slot. You always want to match your slot in the screw through this blade on the screwdriver. Try to go too small with one of these, you risk butterflying the slot. Again, this appears to be a JIS screw. I think this is a JIS screwdriver. Let's see. Yeah, no, it's probably the right screwdriver, but the wrong width of one. All right, we'll just continue. There's only one more screw to go here. I hope you've enjoyed this so far. We showed you a little bit about what happens with some older reels. Every now and then those older reels that rely on springs, particularly flat type springs, they wear, they lose their tension. And it's usually a simple enough task like we did here, just to rebend, restore the tension in that spring. Sometimes you're out of luck. In this case, I think Randy's going to have well, more fishing to get done out of this. All right, there's this button seems stuck inside the spool here, and I'm not going to risk trying to work this out. There's something going on here. Whatever that something is, we're going to have to let it go. If I can somehow manage to have it work its way back in. Yeah, no, we're going to leave that one go. Sometimes with the older reels, it's discretion is the better part of valor, right? Just don't fight it. If the drags are tightening down, and these drags are probably Teflon drags to begin with. Yeah, they're tight. We're going to just leave it at that. All right, so what did we do then? We did an awful lot to this reel. We diagnosed the issue. The issue was that you did not have an anti-reverse. We were able to open up the reel and find out that the cause was that this override button kind of got stuck low in the override position. Didn't allow it to function. Took that out, restored the tension on that spring, and we hosed down that anti-reverse dog quite a bit. We used a lot of penetrating oil there just to free up any dried greases and that may be in there. Showed you the architecture of the reel, how to take the reel apart, remove the main gear, the pinion gear, the rotor, and the like. Put it all back together again. We have that anti-reverse now. And a functional bail. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. This has been the service of the Browning. It's been the 5330 or 5330 fishing reel. It's ready to go again. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, and everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. I do appreciate everything that you do on a day in and day out basis to keep us safe and out of harm's way. I want to thank all of our viewers for making this channel what it is. I want to encourage you again to subscribe if you have not subscribed. Go ahead and do that. It doesn't cost you anything. There's a lot of benefits in it for you in terms of seeing what the fishing reels are that I post and learning about them and how you can service them yourself. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day. All right, what the fuck do I got here? Put this over here. This out of the way, there's way too much shit here. This goes up there, that can go in there. Another one in there, another one in there. This goes over here. Here, 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 up there, and there, here, back here.